Hello and welcome to the Green 19 podcast. I'm Dominique Yates. Joining me as always, Ryan Wood and Tom Silverstein. As on this Thursday, we just checked out a little bit of practice with the Packers, getting ready for a game week on Sunday in LA against the Rams. Kickoff set for 3:25 p.m. Personally, that's like a nice little sweet spot. I do like noon games, but I think 3:25 is nice. Get a little sleep in too, and then you can get ready for the game. So. Fun fact, which do you prefer, noon, night, or 3:25?
It makes Saturday nights a lot better.
I think 3:25 is the worst.
The worst?
Yeah.
It's the tweener, you know. It's like you got to do the same amount of work in less time. So, well, that's from an old newspaper standpoint.
Yeah.
You know, you used to have to get stuff in at 9 o'clock, and then
Right.
they'd want the same amount of stuff at a noon kickoff that they did at a 3:25 kickoff. So,
Yeah.
okay.
So you are more of a
Anyway,
noon guy,
move
though?
on. I like a night game or a noon game. I prefer a noon game the most.
Yeah.
I remember those newspaper days on 3:25. That was brutal.
Yeah.
That was the worst. It got to the point where like night games were the best because there was no actual like print deadline at that point.
Right.
But the 3:25 was the worst. So it makes the Saturday nights a little bit more enjoyable. You can I'll say this: noon games in Nashville, Tennessee are dangerous. So LA 3:25 is preferred from the Saturday night perspective. However, it gets to be a really late day, and it's not. The thing with night games is you can truncate the work a little bit. It's a long wait to the game, which on Sunday, which is never fun, but you can kind of truncate the hours there. It's a long day on a 3:25. It's a really long day. So this will be your first 3:25. We'll see what you think.
Yeah. First trip to LA as well.
A week from now, we'll see what you think after going through this.
I know it. And just real quick, though, you said Nashville is dangerous. Is it because of too much hot chicken and sweet tea?
No, but that's part.
Let's talk football
Broadway.
Before people just turn off this podcast. But as it is game week, I mean, there are some things that we do need to touch on. But I think one thing we don't talk, you could say, as much on, we've kind of focused on, you could say Jordan Love's injury, but the injuries as a whole for this team, because there's been a few significant ones, obviously, with Jair Alexander, Christian Watson. And as far as with Watson and his status, head coach Matt LaFleur said it'll likely be a week or so, which you could say they dodged a bullet in terms of it could have been much worse. But as far as with Alexander and Carrington Valentine, at least on the practice field, you've added depth. But I guess big picture, what do you think it does at least mean at this point in time with these guys? Obviously, still got a ways to go before we know about Sunday's availability, but at least adding those guys, at least a positive step.
Well, we were trying to figure it out, and Carrington Valentine's on his second week, so the way that the pattern usually goes with the Packers, he's probably coming back. Jair Alexander flipped a coin, basically. Christian Watson, Devontae Wyatt does not look like they will play this week, so it's kind of all across the board. But the Packers have absolutely no excuse when it comes to injuries. I mean, there hasn't been a team in the NFL more beat up this season than the Rams. It's ridiculous. I mean, when you have to go into multiple games without your two best receivers, who, by the way, are two all-pro type guys, that's it's been rough sledding in LA.
Yeah, other than Philadelphia, I mean, I think the Packers have had an injury advantage in every single game up to this point. They'll have a huge advantage on Sunday, and if they can't get healthy against this team, then they got a lot of explaining to do.
Isn't it weird that the one game the Rams have actually won was against the 49ers? Now, they were banged up, too.
Injuries, yeah.
There was injuries there, too, but still, like, They had a good start to their year. They went overtime against the Lions. That's impressive, right? Yeah. But they're 1-3, and the one team that they just happened beats the 49ers. I feel like they're I don't know what to make of them, but they're a team that has a puncher's chance. I mean, it's not like they're going against Brett Rippon this week. It's Matthew Stafford.
Yeah.
He can give away as many plays as he makes, and that's always the thing with him. But I feel like they have a puncher's chance, even not having Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, even Aaron Donald. But
Tyler Higbee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they're devastated on offense. They're missing two starting offensive linemen are on IR. It's been a rough go for Sean McVay.
Basically, don't let Matthew Stafford get hot. Like, that's the one guy this week that he can beat you if you let him.
Yeah. I guess which is so fascinating because you look at just the gauntlet you had to go through with the Vikings, who has become one of the most impressive teams in the NFL just because of the unexpected. Expect the unexpected with them. Tom, I know you like to look at the film, and I was even looking at some of the clips with you throughout this week. What are some of the glaring things? Obviously, we talked a lot, but what are some of the glaring things that have still stood out? That is like, okay, the Packers need to show a step in the right direction, clean those up heading into this game with LA.
Well, one, they have to be ready to react to how the Vikings block them, with a four-man rush. I mean, the Vikings had a really good plan. They chipped the ends, they kept everything condensed, made it so that the ends really couldn't move all that much without running into somebody. Let their three guys in the middle take their two guys in the front, and because they didn't blitz or anything, they just had a great plan. I mean, O'Connell came up with a great game plan, and so they can expect the same thing again from McVay. He's gonna see that and say, okay, if you're gonna keep rushing four, we're gonna do the exact same thing. And so that's going to be Jeff Hafley's task. Is okay, they did this to us, we got to change it. Okay, McVay's gonna think we're going to change it. What's he going to do? It's when you play bad and you get out coached, then the onus is on you to come back the next week, and I think that's a big thing for them this week.
Yeah, Ryan, for you, what are some things that, just from your vantage point, you want to see? It's a little more cleaner football from the group.
Yeah, penalties.
Yeah.
You just said it right there.
Yeah.
Clean, right?
Yeah.
Good Lord. I don't know what's been more
five?
nauseating this season, the missed kicks or the penalties. Yeah. I can't pick between the two. Make your kicks, and for goodness sakes, stop having a penalty every time you have a big play. And it seems like that. Like every single time a running back breaks into the second level, there's a penalty flag. Every time you hear a bell ring, an angel gets its wings. It's the same thing. So I think that the getting clean there is huge in all facets, all areas of the game. And we were asked this week, I didn't see what your guys' answers were, but what do you make of the penalties? And it's always kind of a direct correlation of coaching. But in this case, I mean, it's also a young team. Yeah. I feel like we forget how young this team is. I don't know what you guys make of the penalties.
But that was what stood out to me. I guess just on the offensive line, like the guys that have been some of the most penalized, Rasheed Walker, he's been on the list. Yeah. And I think out of the entire, I looked it up, of the 5 offensive linemen, I think Sean Ryan's the only guy that has yet to have a penalty this year. And
I would not have had that on my bingo card. Yeah, Sean Ryan's the only guy. That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah. I think, he's the only guy that I saw that has yet to have a penalty this year. So I think, it's youth, though. Those are still some young guys on that O-line. And just it seems like a lot of simple, small mistakes, but some that are head-scratchers, like the Titans game, the Preston Smith offsides. Like, that's a veteran guy, but I do think sometimes this, Matt LaFleur said, it comes down to technique, and it just, practicing and working on it. But I think that's just kind of been my vantage point with just some of the youth and some of the things that you've seen from some of the O-linemen as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to give the offensive line an excuse of youth, because you've still got Elton Jenkins. He's got a couple of penalties. Myers has been around. Walker's, this is his 3rd year, and it's a 2nd year as a starter. Same for Zach Tom. I think what's happened is with a lot of the pulling, trapping, and things like that, they're blocking on the move, and when they miss their aiming point, they tend to grab, or get their arms locked in on guys. And I think we've seen that. I think Tucker Kraft, that happened to him. It happened to Rasheed Walker that one time and got his arm out. I think they just have to be better on the move and cleaner. And I don't know if that's a coaching technique that they need to learn or what, but learn when to let go, because the officials are definitely calling it. They're high on it. So I don't know. I think some of it has to do with all the running and trying to be physical and all of that, but they got to be smarter.
To me, those holding penalties, I think they're 3rd in the league in holding penalties, but 3rd most. Yeah. Those obviously are frustrating because they wipe out a big play. I mean, it's never a good time to have a 10-yard penalty like that. But the pre-snap, the procedural, they have like 9 procedural mental penalties from offsides, false start, illegal shift, illegal formation, delay of game, like 9 in 4 games. Like, that's insane.
A legal formation on a punt is ridiculous.
Right.
I mean, I can understand, okay, a left tackle's cheating on 3rd and 12 because he just knows this guy's getting upfield. But a punt guy, I mean, line up with your helmet where it's supposed to be. That's absurd to me. I think that's happened twice this year that they've had a legal formation on punt.
It wiped out a great Daniel Whelan in the opener. You know, he had like a 50, and then he comes back with a 41-yarder. Like it's a huge flip of field position.
It is true, but as you just wrapped it up, they'll have to play cleaner football because players and head coaches seem to be getting flags this season. So there's a lot that needs to, like you said, just be a little bit more cleaner. And just because, like I said, those things come back to bite you. It did in the Vikings game. It can do it in other games throughout this season. As we stick with the offense, it's only fair, we talk about Jordan Love. He talked with us in the locker room on Wednesday, and just looking at his game, obviously, you wrote about the interceptions and all of that too. Just, I guess, what do you make of some of those interceptions? Do you feel like, was it some game rust? Was it some just little things that he was trying to force? Just, I guess, what did you make of some of those picks and some of the decisions that he made in the game?
I asked Matt LaFleur about this, and he told me point blank, it's one game. He's not going to freak out about it.
Fair.
And so then I'm, my thought as well, is that a fair thing or not? Is this a trend that is concerning or is it not? And the way he explained it, like each of the 3 were fixable. Like he understood what happened on each of the 3. The first one, the one to Christian Watson, frankly, the linebacker just made a hell of a play on it. It was, as Matt LaFleur described, it was in Tampa 2, and Luke Musgrave had a seam route that was supposed to carry the linebacker through, and almost every time it does carry the linebacker through, but the linebacker peeled off and went for Christian Watson and made a play on the ball and finished. I mean, that's a really good play on the other team. Those things are going to happen. The other 2, both times, Jordan Love had a free rusher in his face, unblocked. Like, it's easy to blame the quarterback for interceptions, rightly so, because you can never throw the ball away. Like you got to take care of the football, but it's never just the quarterback.
Right.
Many times it's not just the quarterback that is involved in making a pick. You got to protect them. If you have a free rusher in your face, that's when mistakes happen. No matter if you're Jordan Love or any other quarterback in the league, that's how you get a quarterback off their game, is getting pressure on them, and they did. So the protection's got to be better. The spacing on his second interception, that Luke Musgrave, rightly so, thought it was a high pass to him, and Romeo Doubs who was the intended target, just happened to be directly behind Luke Musgrave, and the ball went through Luke Musgrave's hands and to Doubs. Doubs had to widen his route out. He was supposed to take it straight vertical upfield, but Harrison Smith was playing inside leverage. He had to widen it out, and that, because it was wider, when he wrapped back inside, he happened to be right behind Luke Musgrave instead of on the inside of Luke Musgrave, and it was bad, in Matt LaFleur's words, bad distribution for the spacing of the offense. Like, it's not just the quarterback and I think the promising thing is that Jordan Love had his second ever 3-pick game against the Vikings. The first one was week 5 last year in Las Vegas. That game, he didn't have 200 yards passing. He didn't have a single touchdown pass. He wasn't making plays either. He made a lot of plays on Sunday, especially for a guy that missed 2 games, coming back, was rusty. He obviously threw the ball 54 times. But he almost had 400 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, career highs. He's making plays. As soon as those mistakes go away, I think he's going to continue to make plays. Cleaning those things up should be the priority.
It's a great point. And that interception alone, before the ball was even thrown by Love, there was a missed blocking assignment by Josh Jacobs, which, again, Tom, you made the point, and you just made the point as well. It takes the whole team. The team has to help Love, and there were some moments in the game where guys didn't help him. Some drop passes, some missed blocking assignments, just a lot of things that goes back to the need to clean up.
Yeah, I mean, I would fault Love on the first 2, and then the third one, I think if that blitz gets picked up, I think he, even though Doubs did, not run the route exactly how they want it, if you look at it, he's going to hit another window, and I think that's going to be a big play but he had to get rid of it, and so it still could have not been an interception, but I don't blame him as much. The one to down the sideline to Wicks was really bad decision. Just he's trying to make something happen, and in that situation, I don't know that that was the right thing to do because they were playing pretty good offense at that point. They were starting to move the ball. And then that first one, I don't know, it's a split-second decision. You're right, he doesn't see the linebacker, but it also was kind of covered. Yeah. So I'll just, for argument's sake, say, yeah, he made a couple of plays, and he was so good at protecting the ball last year that, that was a difference. But there was a lot of sloppiness. How many drops they had? They had like 7 drops at least.
Yeah.
And that hurt too. And then of those 7 drops, like maybe 5 of them were not good throws. Like the guy could have had it, but if Love puts it right on him, then it's probably a better situation. So there was a lot of mistiming, a lot of mistakes. I think that'll be cleaned up as they go along, whether it happens this week with the timing and Love correcting his throws. He said that as the game wore on, he felt like he was throwing the ball better, and I think that's true. I think he threw fewer low balls as the game wore on. But let's see what happens this week. There should be an improvement. We should see more accuracy this week.
I think that, go ahead.
To your point, I don't know if you've watched them back or not on film yet, but that third one, Tucker Kraft's wide open in the middle.
Yeah, sure.
There's no one around him. Like, okay, so my point, I shouldn't just let Jordan Love off the hook either, because you might have a free rusher at your face, but you have a tight end wide open in the middle of the field where you can perfectly go to the ball, just make that quick reaction, that decision, and pick right.
He had it in his head. He was going that way.
Right.
You can't do that. You gotta read the situation.
So there's a lot of guys, and just mentioning Jacobs, I'm interested to see what his bounce back game will be like, because after you look at the numbers and it was all broke down, he did still play more snaps than Emmanuel Wilson, even though it might not have felt like it. And it kind of goes back to some of those missed blocking assignments. But you'll have a game here, you're not going to see the same type of defense as you saw against the Vikings. Right. You should not be down 28-0, so you should have more of a run. You would hope, right? So you would expect more of the run game to get going. So I'm really interested in the bounce-back game that Josh Jacobs could have.
More than 9 carries.
Yeah.
More than, he's got 23 the last 2 weeks. I'm not saying he's 23 this week, but something closer to that. Some positions, tight end, for example, with Tucker Kraft, Luke Musgrave, the snap counts are very telling. Like, okay, who's getting the snaps, right? At running back, Josh Jacobs, it's not about snaps for him. He's got to get the ball. Like, that's why you brought him in here, because he's a playmaker. He's a guy that can kind of be an engine to the offense because he can take on such a week-to-week big workload, right? He's got to get the ball. 9 to 8 just can't happen. Whatever the missed pass pro assignments, that can't happen either. But at the same time, he is a guy that he's so important to what this offense does in terms of productivity. He's got to get the ball more than 9 times.
Yeah. Any thoughts from this one?
No, not really.
Okay. Let's move along, as we talked about Watson a minute ago, and just his injury, of course, as the cliche term, next man up. You might see maybe a little bit of Bo Melton or Malik Heath, but a guy that's been on the field, that a good opportunity to take another step. You wrote about him, Dontavian Wicks. He caught the 2 touchdown passes. He had some drops, but I think he was very big on the fact, he said that the coaches still trust him. That, like, okay, even if I make one bad play, they still will go right back to me, just some quick game throw just to try to get the ball in his hands and see what happened. And it did lead to a touchdown. Just what were your takeaways from your conversation with Wicks, and just thoughts on, maybe what he could do heading into this game Sunday and maybe even beyond?
It's the curse of the playmaker, right? And there's no excuse. You got to catch the ball. The most important part of being a receiver is receiving. You have to catch it. But Dontavian Wicks is a playmaker. I was surprised to see that his 3 touchdowns, there's only 2 receivers in the league with more. That's Marvin Harrison Jr. and Justin Jefferson. Two pretty stud guys, right? Like, he is an absolute bona fide playmaker in this offense. But the curse of that is it's not enough to ever just catch the ball, right? You have to let that be enough sometimes. You get a target, you're thinking, and he told me he's thinking touchdown, yards right away, so his eyes drift before the ball's in his hands. And that's what happened Sunday. He had 3 bad drops, The first one on a 3rd down inside the red zone, where just catching it was a first down, but he saw
on a low ball too. I'm not exonerating him. He should have caught it, but it was one of those low throws that put him in a bad position. But he still should have caught it. Yes.
No, I mean the sit route in the middle of the field later in the game, that was slightly behind him.
That was behind him.
You know, but like when the ball hits your hands, like
right.
you have to catch the ball. And what Dontavian Wicks told me is that on that one that was a low throw, but it wasn't even to his knees. It was kind of like thigh high, you know, it was below the belt, but thigh high. Like he sees the end zone, he's thinking touchdown, and then boom. Like you got to catch the ball first. The one that I thought was, I went back and looked at this in slow motion. I'm curious what you think. The fourth down the field.
Yeah,
he was fighting through contact, but at the time that the ball got there wasn't contact at that point. Right. He had already fought through the contact. Dontavian Wicks told me that he felt like his left arm was kind of getting pulled back, but you look at the video in slow motion, it looked like he had a chain and kind of the football hit his left. What he also told me is that he was thinking touchdown on that one. He wanted to be, instead of going up and getting the ball, going after the ball, he wanted to be closer. He knew it was right at the goal line. Oh. He wanted to be closer to the touchdown when he caught it. And it's fourth down, man. If you're at the one, it doesn't matter.
Just catch it.
You know?
So he did get yanked on the left shoulder right as he's kind of going up. But I think he kind of mistimed the jump in the first place because, you know, his arms were here. And, you know, if you're jumping, you know, your arm should be up, extended. And it just, like, surprised him and hit him in the chest. And so I just think he mistimed the jump, and that hurt him. You know, some guys are really good at that. And, you know, part of it, I agree with Love where he said, you know, mostly he's been throwing at stationary targets. He hasn't been throwing to his guys through practice, you know, partial practice last week. But this week, he's taken every snap with the number one offense. So that's becoming, okay, that's not as much of an excuse anymore. There will still be mistiming, but he's getting a full weekend with his guys. And, you know, and also for those receivers, they went through 2 weeks of not seeing the ball at all, you know, of running routes that were mostly to block. Yeah. So, I mean, it was a transition for them as well. So, okay, there's all my excuse making. But now they got to come out big this week.
Yeah. You know? So, last point on the receivers. Tom, is there any guy not named Jaden Reed that you want to see, you know, do something? Because I guess Reed, he's just on a historic run right now. What he's doing is pretty remarkable. Is it Wicks, or is there maybe another receiver that you're keeping an eye out on, especially without Watson? Okay, who might kind of step in?
Dobbs has to become the third down, like, guru. I mean, that's what he does. He goes across the middle. He's got great hands. They have to start using him like when Rodgers was here and it was third down. Who did he go to? Jordy Nelson every single time. And then, you know, then it was Devontae, and even if he was triple covered, he did it. So I kind of think Dobbs has to be that guy. Doesn't mean he has to have 9 catches, but if he has 8 catches for, or let's say 6 catches for, you know, 70 yards, that's a good day for him.
Yeah.
Who's the guy this week? I'll give myself partial credit because last week I said it would be Dontavian Wicks. Yeah. And he had 13 targets, so he didn't lead them in receiving, but he led them in 13 targets is a lot. He would have had more catches instead of drops, and it would have been a lot higher numbers. It felt like a Dontavian Wicks week last week. Who's the guy this week?
I think it's whoever they play in the slot.
Jaden Reed.
You know, so
like that's the easy answer.
It could be. They could use Wicks in the slot more. You know, the Rams are down to, you know, they have 4 rookie backups, you know, who are probably going to have to play in their nickel and dime and whatever. And LaFleur loves matchups, and he's going to try to find those matchups. And so, you know, I think they'll end up picking on some of those guys, and whoever's covering them. You know, they may decide to double cover Jaden Reed and take their chances with the rest. So that'll be a good chess match.
The reason I ask is I find it interesting. Through 4 games now, Jaden Reed was week 1, Romeo Dobbs was week 2, Christian Watson was week 3, and Dontavian Wicks was week 4, right? Which is kind of how we expected this to be with this receiving group. Like they don't have that quote unquote number one receiver, although Jaden Reed might challenge that by the end of the year.
Oh yeah, I think it's already. I think he's your number one.
With Jordan Love for sure. There's a special connection going on, but I think with the way they view it is that they have 4 starters who are kind of all on equal footing and based on matchups, based on the attention of the secondary, where that may go or not go to. That's the guy that week, and it will be that revolving door. My point is, when Dontavian Wicks has these drops, they go back to him because they need Dontavian Wicks to be a focal point of this offense. He is going to be the best version of this offense. Much like Josh Jacobs having more than 9 carries, the best version of this offense is Dontavian Wicks having a significant role. And that's not going to change. He's going to have more than one bad game of drops to have that change.
As we move to the defense, it's still, you say the question marks, because if you look at, you say the secondary is like, okay, well, Valentine or an Alexander, someone be in the fold, because then immediately it already gets better. But as far as what you do know needs to get better for sure, is it just simply the pass rush? You have to see more pass rush?
Yeah, they need more pass rush, and it's really time. I know I've said it several weeks in a row, but it is time to get Edgerrin Cooper on the field more. Yeah. I mean, he just has to be on the field. No way does Isaiah McDuffie get to that fumble after Keyshawn Nixon hit Darnold. Yeah. I mean, Edgerrin Cooper was like a shooting star. Yeah. I mean, he is so fast, and speed is just so important on the field. You put him and Walker in there, and I think you can do a lot of things with blitzing and coverage, and so that's number one. The other is come up with a good pass rush plan. I don't think you have to blitz a lot, but I think you gotta put some pressure on the Rams somehow. Put some pressure on their weak spots, and don't just sit back with 4 guys. I don't know that. That's not going to happen every week. You're not going to face Tennessee every week, although this might be Tennessee. I don't know.
Yeah. I guess that was the thing that surprised me the most, is that how long they waited to kind of send some blitzes. I guess maybe that is part of Jeff Hafley feeling like, okay, I have these guys up front with Clark and like Smith. We should be able to get pressure, but it just hasn't happened yet. Do you think they need to throw in a little bit more, just throwing in more pressure, more blitzes, just kind of try to rattle the offenses more?
I probably should be harder on Jeff Hafley. All right, I probably should be. I just watched 3 years of Joe Barry, so I'm not the fact that there was an in-game adjustment. Yeah. I probably should be harder on him for taking till halftime, but I'm conditioned to not expect such things, right? So, to me, Rashawn Gary, Kenny Clark, they got to make more plays. I don't put that on Jeff Hafley. You've got this 4-3 defense, which your primary job is penetration, getting off the snap, into the backfield, which is what these guys should be doing well. If I'm Jeff Hafley, I'm kind of expecting that to happen going into the Minnesota game. I mean, and then, I'm surprised it doesn't. Maybe he makes an adjustment second quarter instead of second half. But, I can understand why he expected those guys to get home. They need to get home.
I think he got terrified by that double move that Corey Ballantyne gave up on the touchdown. Mm-hmm. And then he's probably a little nervous without Jair Alexander in the first place, facing Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and Jalen Naylor. And then he gets, his guy gets scorched on a double move. And I'm sure he was just like, okay, I'm not rushing anybody. He's dropping 7 the whole game. But that's not how you can think. You have to think, if your guys are not getting, if your vaunted front four is not getting there, then you got to do something. Yeah. Maybe they're having a bad day, maybe they're not what you thought they were, but you got to do something. So, yeah, he was in a pickle, without Jair Alexander.
And he did do something. Should I be harder on Jeff Hafley than I'm being?
No.
Okay.
I'm just saying,
because he did something.
He did adjust. Yes.
Yeah.
He should have adjusted earlier. That's the biggest thing. Yeah. I don't think you'd sit there and go, oh, what a crappy defensive coordinator. Mm-hmm. I think we're talking about one game. We're talking about, the game plan for one game, and it wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens the next game.
I guess for the way it might look like it feels dramatic or you're being hard just because it was like so different from one week to the next. I get it, the Titans, I get it's the Vikings, different teams, but you look at one game, 8 sacks, everybody's getting pressure, everybody's getting tackles, everybody's making plays, pick sixes, and then the next week you just don't see much of that. So I guess it's fair to at least have that initial what in the world happened, but not every team is going to be the Titans or even the Colts or any team like that for that matter.
Well, that's where through 4 games, this is an average defense. The one thing that's not average about this defense is their ability to take the ball away. I mean, that's off the charts.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you just have defenses that have that type of year. Well, it's 4 games. We'll have to see if it's that type of year or just a really good month. We don't know yet. But everything else about this defense has been average. Like they have gotten beat up against the 2 good offenses they played, and they have beaten up the 2 bad offenses they played. That is an average defense with an ability, a knack for taking the ball away.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that 5 of their interceptions were definitely individual plays. So all 4 of McKinney's were. He was in the right place, or put in the right place. But I mean, he came across the field. Those were individually great plays.
He ain't average. He ain't average.
Jair Alexander's interception against Philadelphia was an individual play. He wasn't even around that guy, and he came back and picked it off in the end zone. I can't even think, who were their other 2 interceptions?
The pick six Jair had.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
pick six.
But that was an individual play.
Evan Williams, who for some reason I just wanted to call Micah Hyde. Gosh, he reminds me so much of Micah Hyde already.
Yeah,
but he had the Hail Mary. Isaiah McDuffie had one against Michael Pittman in the slot against the Colts. You remember? No, it's Eric Wilson, not Isaiah McDuffie.
Wilson,
Packers linebacker.
Yeah, McDuffie had the drop.
Same position, yeah.
He had the drop
McDuffie
interception
had the drop.
last
Eric
week.
Wilson had the interception.
That was a really good play.
It was a great play. Yeah, that was. But that was more scheme too. That because
that was a scheme.
Yeah.
Yes, that was definitely a scheme. I think one of the things that Hafley's going through is he's a college coach. He hasn't been in the NFL for 5 years, and now he's facing all these Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, Kevin O'Connell types who are, really hard to game plan against. And I think he's taken a little bit of lump. I think as he goes along, you want to see if he adjusts. But I am far from like anti-Jeff Hafley at this point.
No, not at all. As far as you look at the good and not so good of the special teams, we can start with the good. I think that's a pretty easy one, right?
Good
Daniel
Angel's
Whelan.
me, and we'll have Spoon be the bad angel. Yeah. All right, so Daniel
Okay,
Whelan.
Daniel Whelan,
Glass
Ray
half
Narvison.
full.
Right.
He might be their best player. Jaden Reed would give him a run, but it's one of those 2 as their best player through 4 games. And that's that's not even exaggeration. Like, he's been that good. 13 punts, 6 inside the 20, 3 inside the 10. And he's been clutch. I mean, he's flipped field. He has pinned teams, not just pinning teams, but when they needed him to pin teams. I asked him what he, felt about his first 4 games. He said it could be better. I'm like, what could be better? He said, well, there's too many touchbacks. So apparently 2 touchbacks out of 13 is too many. But let's not forget that one of those touchbacks literally hit 6 inches into the end zone on a 63-yard punt in Tennessee and immediate roll backward. The other one hit at the 1-yard line in Tennessee on another long punt. Like, those are, as touchbacks go, those are pretty good touchbacks. He doesn't have any blemishes. I thought the most impressive thing, the muff punt had a lot to do with Daniel Whelan. Like, he walked me through it. He's coming out to the field. He sees the flags. Oh, it's pretty windy up there. And then he sees that it's Jalen Naylor, who's never done this before. He's never returned a punt in the NFL. So they don't have their main guy. They got a guy that's inexperienced and very windy, and he just sends it into the stratosphere. And it was an over 5-second hang time. No, it was 4.85-second hang time punt. Almost 5 seconds. And you could tell, like, Jalen Naylor drifted back into his left 10 yards and tried to catch the ball like this because it was a mid-air adventure. That was Daniel Whelan making a play with his leg. It's not like the Packers want him to be punting more, obviously, but they feel like when he does punt, he is a game changer, and he's been that. His specialty, he's already got 3 punts this season out of 13 with over 5-second hang. He doesn't have a single punt with fewer than 4.25 seconds hang time. Like, he's consistently just crushing the football. You're talking about a punter who's got his drop where he needs to be every time out there. He's been really, really, really good. And honestly, like, good punting's fun to watch. Like, it's the way the ball leaves his foot. It's been fun to watch.
It is kind of crazy. 28-0. He punts for the first time. Muff punt. Bo Melton recovers. Touchdown into the half. The comeback is on. That says a lot about what he has done. As far as, like we said, the not so good with the Braden Arvison, just what do you make of the kicking situation? We've talked about it at great lengths and volumes. Is there anything that you can say on it?
Well, you can argue that he cost them a game by missing the 2 field goals. I think there's an argument to be made. I don't know if the game plays out exactly the same way. Connell could have played it differently if they were trailing, or he might have kicked a field goal instead of going for it on 4th and 1 down in the Packers' end. But the more he keeps missing, the more you have to start questioning it. They brought in 2 kickers this week, but there is nobody out there. The rest of the veteran guys stink. I mean, there's something wrong with all of them. I went through the list, and it's really not very good.
Yeah, isn't Justin Tucker like the lowest percentage of field goals?
Yeah, I'm talking about free agents.
Free agents,
there's just I mean, the Chad Ryland, the guy they brought in this week, was a 4th-round pick of the Patriots, and he can't get a job. He got picked up on Arizona's practice squad, but nobody's out there rushing to sign him. And then there's a bunch of old guys who are out there. They can. I think what they have the luxury of doing is, okay, kick him, see where it goes through 6 games, see if Greg Joseph becomes available after Graham Gano comes back from his hamstring injury in New York. And then they make a decision at that point. Are they going to keep going with Narveson? So this week he talked to his kicking coach, Bisaccia, I forgot who the other person was that he talked to, all noticed the same thing, and so he's going to make a change that he was stepping too wide to the ball or something like that. We'll see. So he's going to make a change, and we'll see if that affects it. But he's running out of chances. It's basically where we're at. And I suggested they have a competition with him and Alex Hale and just say, hey, whoever's kicking the better this week, you're playing.
Yeah.
And we might even elevate Hale and then make one of the 2 of you inactive for the game based on how you kick before the game. I don't know. Something has to either make him realize that, every kick is precious, or fix it.
Yeah.
And that's where they're at.
Yeah. As we near the end of the podcast, just looking at the Rams, I guess what are you interested in? What are you looking at for this game? I mean, you mentioned Stafford. I guess Kyron Williams has been a running back. Tutu Atwell, guy I actually covered at the University of Louisville. He's been one of the main receivers for them right now because everybody's hurt. I guess I guess you kind of alluded to earlier, the game plan is don't let Matt Stafford beat you. Is that pretty much the name of the game for you?
It's a take care of business week, I think. Right? You got to beat the teams on your schedule you're supposed to beat, and this is one. They're not a particularly good team, and they're also not anywhere near full health. So I don't care if this game's in SoFi, Lambeau, the Moon. You gotta beat this team. It's just take care of business.
Yeah.
LaFleur is 4-0 against Sean McVay, so there's something at stake from that regard, but. This is a game you should win. I mean, on paper, on the field, in Vegas, I don't know, wherever, this is the game they have to win. And if they don't perform up to par, then they're kind of, you have to question where they're going this year. But this game's like teed up for them because Cooper Kupp, facing the Rams without Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua is like, facing your favorite team without Anthony Davis and LeBron James.
Lakers fan here.
Yeah, Laker guy.
That's what it is.
That's very
Those
accurate.
Two guys are game changers. So, yeah, They should win this game.
I was going to say it's like facing the Rams defense without Aaron Donald. Because they'll also be, it's everything. And obviously he's not coming back through that door. He's retired. So isn't it interesting how much different the track record is for Matt LaFleur against Sean McVay than Kyle Shanahan?
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
I know. I love the photo
Really
when after the 49ers lost, you saw McVay like touch Shanahan's in like the little brother mode. Speaking of which, do you think LaFleur gets motivated about these type of situations? Where it's like you see his brother on the other side, you see McVay.
The competitor?
Yeah, you bet he does.
Yeah.
He's, oh, no, I'm not even going to talk to him. We're not going to talk to him. Blah, 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 blah. Bull. He's in his office like he has Sean McVay photos, and he's throwing stuff at it and darts. Not that he doesn't like Sean McVay. But my favorite story about those two guys was they were in a preseason game here at Green Bay, and McVay let LaFleur call plays. He was the offensive coordinator. McVay calls plays, but he was the offensive coordinator. And LaFleur is calling his plays, and McVay is second-guessing him on every single play, like for a little short period. And they had this huge blow-up over the headset system that people who were listened to it said was just absolutely classic.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of history with those two guys, and they've been together for a long time. And I think there's a lot of love there, but there's a lot of competition.
I feel like that's a great way to end it, unless you guys have any closing words or anything else you wanted to add. Well, we're looking forward to this game heading to L.A. It should just be an interesting game. And like you said, if the Packers take care of business, play cleaner football, should be able to leave L.A. with the win.
But you want to see the Staples Center while you're there? You want to?
I hope to.
Just ride by.
I hope to. You want to take me? Let's Uber. Let's get in the Uber and let's go. I got to see the Hollywood sign. I got to see Staples. I don't know how far it is. But
I've been in the Forum.
Oh, really? Oh, that's
Really?
awesome.
Yeah, I don't know if that still
fun.
exists or not. Is it up or has it been knocked
Were you
down?
fan or reporter?
So I was there to cover a game, and me and another reporter went to a Lakers game.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
it was, I covered a game in the Forum too.
Yeah.
Did you?
I covered a game when, was it Kareem hit, it was a guy with the Bucks. He was really pissed. He was getting elbowed or something. It wasn't the Kent Benson one. It was like Frank Bukowski or something like that. And he got kicked out of the game.
Oh, that's
I was
incredible.
right there, just underneath the basket.
I
was
it.
filling in for our beat guy who couldn't go to the game, so I went. That was a
I bet say tough assignment.
Yeah, right. Oh, twist your arm.
That'd be really cool. But, man, I love it. We just need to have more story time with Spoon. We'll get some good things out of it.
Staples Centers is cool. They got a lot of statues. Obviously, you've been to Lambeau Field, you know a thing or two about statues, but they got a lot of statues there. I think it's really cool how they kind of commemorate their history there.
I want to check it out. I'm going to take some photos, too, when we get there, so it'll be fun. So, looking forward to the game. And without further ado, we thank you all for checking out this week's edition of the Green 19 podcast. For Ryan Wood, Tom Silverstein, I'm Dominique Yates.